The Ethiopia-Tigray War causes challenges, implications, and solutions for the political stability and economic development of the region. Joining us via Zoom is Kop'ep Dabugat, an international affairs and public policy expert. He has written on governance, conflict policy matters. He has extensive experience in civil society engagement at the African level and is currently running a PhD program at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Nairobi, Kenya. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you, and good evening, the viewers.
All right, going straight to it, we want to ask, this conflict started up, can you give us a small background on the conflict between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and how it is dovetailed to what we have presently?
Thank you very much. I think the conflict in Ethiopia at the moment can be traced back to the fallout from the Ethiopian Civil War, which lasted from 1974 to 1991. And particularly, why I link it that far back is because of the pattern of engagement of different actors within this conflict. Just before the Civil War broke out in 1974, already the Eritrean War, the Ethiopian Marxist junta at that time, and particularly they were fighting for their own independence. Now, at the same time, part of the issues they had was because of an overbearing, presence of the Tigrayans in the war against them, and the Tigrayans really were at the forefront of fighting the Eritrean war. So that is one of the patterns. The second pattern is the fact that the Tigrayans have been one of the most organized rebel groups in the Ethiopian sphere. And as a result, they led a coalition of several ethnic rebel groups, ethnic-based rebel groups in Ethiopia that led to the final defeat of the military junta in 1991. So we're seeing the Tigrayans again. And thirdly, there has been, the Tigrayans are not really the largest ethnic group, but they are the most organized and have led that central government for a very, very long time, since 1991, when the rebel groups took over. So naturally, the rebel alliance now formed itself into, the subsisting government for the country, with the Tigrayan Liberation Front at the head. And that has continued over the years, for the past 30 years, until, almost 30 years, not
exactly
fully 30 years.
Okay.
Yes, until Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali took over in 2018. Now, coming on board, he quickly moved to limit the Tigrayan influence in governance, in army, and all that. And that, I think, might have infuriated them. And at that time, he actually stopped an election, a national election, parliamentary elections across the country. But the Tigrayans defied that order and went ahead. And that was the beginning of the war. And of course, as we're seeing today, the pattern of the war is such that the Tigrayans are fighting against a government that they have been part of for a very long time, until Prime Minister Abiy came on board. And he has been able to broker a peace with Eritrea, where Eritrea is now joining forces with the Ethiopian government to face the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. So the Eritreans are coming in from the north, while the government is coming in uh, from the south,
Yeah.
and then the Amarans are also coming in from the east. That has been how the conflict has been until a few months back, when the rebel forces were able to forge a very strong alliance
Yes.
with the Oromo Liberation Front, as well as 7 other ethnic rebel groups within the country, ethnic insurgents within the country. I think that's the quick background I can give on the conflict.
All right, I think that's, thank you very much. That was very extensive and intensive. And so we have a very firm grip on what the issues were. Now, you talked about familiar patterns. One of the patterns before that the war became something of a proxy war between the communist and the other capitalist countries of the West and all of that. Are we seeing this kind of similar pattern in this particular conflict, or is this strictly a local conflict?
Well, it is not as such a local conflict, because we see Eritrea being part of it, and we are also beginning to see some of the effects internationally across the region.
Yeah.
One which is of very important nature is what this means for conflict in Somalia. The Ethiopian government has had to deplete its peacekeeping force in Somalia, which has been the backbone of the UN of the African Union backed force in Somalia, and this has very widespread implications in that it can perhaps lead to the resurgence of groups like Al-Shabaab, as well as also, the infighting within Somalia among the different clans. But also, we've seen an Ethiopia that has been backed for over a long time by the US, since 1991. And this has been a growing relationship, even up till, a few years back when the conflict broke out. Yeah. But we are seeing the US beginning to show some body language to say, look, Prime Minister Abiy, this is not a good thing. And then, of course, we are seeing his local Oromo people going into alliance with, the Tigrayans. So that tells a lot about both international linkages and local alliances. And one last thing I would say is that, knowing that Addis Ababa is seemingly the center of Africa, with a lot of international institutions based there, with the seat of the African Union based there, it has so much implication for the international community on
that's exactly what I wanted to.
If these rebel forces are able to overrun the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa.
All right,
so
that's exactly
a
what
lot
I
of
wanted
international
to ask. What is the implication? Exactly my point. What is or are the implications economically, politically, for Ethiopia, for Eritrea, for the region as a whole? What are some of these implications exactly?
Well, I would say for the moment, one key thing I would like to mention is the fact that there is already an ongoing famine in Ethiopia. Okay. And this coincided with the war. It's not as if it's the war that has been the primary cause of the famine. There has been droughts, and there has been locust attacks as well over parts of Ethiopia. So people were actually facing, that situation. But this war has come up, to exacerbate it. That's one. The second is the fact that a lot of foreign direct investment has been flowing into Ethiopia, particularly over the last perhaps 10 years. Yeah. And of course, this would have to halt for a while. And Ethiopia was already beginning to, pick up economically. It was marked as one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. So we see a slowing down of the Ethiopian economy. And then, of course, you would expect that this would affect countries like Eritrea and also Somalia, who are border countries with Ethiopia.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are
if I
some of
might
the
ask,
economic implications I can draw our
both the
attention to.
government and the Tigrayan forces seem to be at odds. They don't seem to be any closer to a political solution from when the conflict started to date. Is there a solution? Is there a non-violent, non-full-scale war, protracted civil war scenario solution available?
Well, negotiations are always the best way out of conflicts, so that you create the semblance of peace within which you begin to work out a situation. In this case, I would see that as still the only way to go. However, with the way that the rebel forces have been advancing towards the capital over the last 2 months, it seems almost very clear that such negotiations may be difficult to get the rebel forces to back down. However, we are also seeing that internationally, Prime Minister Abiy is under heavy pressure, particularly with matters like a rebuke of the Nobel Prize committee,
Yeah.
To him about how he has mismanaged the peace in Ethiopia, So you see it making it difficult on both sides. While the rebel forces see themselves as already winning. I mean, right now they are within a day's drive, to the capital, and then of course with several prisoners of war that they have captured from the government forces. On the other side, you see a prime minister that has been embattled, that is, is seemingly between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Yeah.
His allies seem to have all abandoned him, while he's facing, these rebel forces. And in fact, I think a few weeks ago, he called out to the Ethiopian public, to come out.
Yeah, I
and take
remember
up
that
arms
incident.
and defend themselves. So he is actually, at that pitch, at that ditch battle stage. So it is sometimes difficult to reach a negotiated settlement within such instances. But I think with
some of the pressures,
the kinds of institutions at the African Union, the Council of the Wise, could step in at this point to negotiate a resolution between the two warring sides.
All right, we're out of time. Ordinarily, I would have loved to ask you, are we looking at another Eritrea-like situation at the end of the day, or is this going to be something different? But we're out of time now, Kop'ep. I'd like to thank you very much for being with us on the show. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, and have a nice evening.
You too, then.